why we're addicted to the same types of relationships. And this is about understanding where the pattern comes from. But more importantly, what I want to teach you today is why the pattern is so fucking hard to break. So do you guys have your books and pens? If you don't, please go and get them, because there's going to be a lot of actual neuroscience stuff in here. There's going to be a lot of nervous system stuff. There's going to be a lot of like belief systems, all of that, because all of my work is backed by science. It isn't just stuff that I decided to like wake up and believe. It's stuff that I've studied, practiced on myself, absorbed from people around, that I want to offer to you. Okay. Quick sip here for hydration. Okay, the first thing we need to recognize is what a pattern is and why a pattern exists. What a pattern really is familiar programming, and listen to this carefully, within the brain and the body, not just the brain, within the brain and the body, that unless this programming is healed or worked on, it repeats whether the person enjoys it or not. This is a key element that you need to understand, that your patterns will repeat whether you want them to or not, or you like them or not, because they are so familiar within your brain and within your body. And I'm going to tell you why that exists and why they happen here, because this is what you need to understand about a pattern. How many of you, another question I want to ask you, have wanted a beautiful, loving relationship, and yet what shows up continuously is dysfunctional and frustrating? Hands raised. Yes. Okay. So this itself challenges us, right? And it says, well, yeah, you're kind of right, because what you're saying is, I want something on this side, but what keeps coming is on this fucking side. So how does that make sense for me? Because of the fact that those things stem from deep patterns that are ironed into our brain and into our body, into our subconscious minds and into our nervous systems, bleeding into our body. So what we're going to go into next is our 3 steps to identifying a painful cycle. So this is something that I came up with, and I can not emphasize enough how important it is to pay attention to these 3 big fucking steps. Because when you are in a painful cycle, your ego will not let you accept that you're in a painful cycle. So what do you need to do? You need to find other ways of identification. Now, I put a hack then. I said, people close to you can point this out, because people close to you are people that you shared your dreams with, you shared your visions, your desires, what you want in life and relationships and all of that shit. And if they're constantly bringing your awareness to say, hey, yes, we love you, but you're not on the path that you want to be on, that's a really powerful hack in letting you know that you're not there. But how else can you identify it? Step number 1, and we're going to talk big time about this on day number 3 as well. Our needs are not being met. This is a huge, what is the word I'm looking for? Identification of a wounded pattern. Now, what's a healthy pattern? That you move from one relationship, and if it's time, ends to another one, but your needs are being met progressively as you move forward. The needs that you have in a relationship are being met. That's a healthy pattern. An unhealthy pattern in a relationship, and this is the strongest way. They don't even need to fucking hit you. They don't need to abuse you. That's not the only way you can feel neglected. You can feel traumatized or rejected or abandoned in a relationship. They can happen in such small ways. And the biggest way that it happens is that your needs are not being met. So as part of your homework, we're going to get into identifying what are your needs in the first place, because a lot of the time we don't even know what our needs are for ourselves going into relationships. We think that our needs are defined by Disney movies, or our needs are defined by like projected stories of our parents. For example, if your parents came from, more likely than not, your parents would have come from like maybe the Industrial Revolution time or the post-war time, where the need of that time and the dynamic of those relationships was to create a family of offspring, make sure there was some financial security, and basically just survive. There was no real depth of emotional connection that really existed in that time. The concept of like validation, the concept of like internal safety for the children, for yourself, that was like non-existent. They had to rebuild the fucking economy. So parents inadvertently were emotionally unavailable because they were spending so much time working. And the other parent was also emotionally burdened by the responsibility of having to handle everything on their own. So that, now, if that's not disconnected from, that starts to portray an identity into my head about what a relationship can actually look like. And so if I don't understand how to meet my needs, then I'm just going to keep projecting the wounded stuff that I have from my parents. And that's unconsciously what we call generational trauma. It can come from survivors of like deep trauma, whether it's colonization or like abuse. It can even simply come from survivors of neglect, survivors of abandonment. Like I said, I was giving this, the talk earlier today was on a seminar with like a lot of other speakers in the trauma space. And I said, our biggest thing we need to do, and I want to tell you guys this because this will help you identify your needs, right? So you write this first point. Don't move to the second and third yet. Write this first point of your needs. And I want you to draw an arrow from there and write trauma, okay? Because trauma is the first action of invalidation of your needs. Now, trauma, again, needs to be redefined by yourself. So draw another arrow from trauma and say, redefined by me. This is so fucking important because I can tell you that a bunch of you, including myself, have probably been to therapists who have unconsciously made you feel like your traumas are too small, that you're just needy, or you're like too demanding, or like you need to just fucking take care of your emotional system, without actually teaching you the fact that you experienced some version of neglect, some version of abandonment, some version of your needs not being met, which was enough to make you feel like you weren't valuable and worthy enough for your needs to be met. I'm not going to dive into the whole element of the subconscious programming around that, except that the simple fact is when you're a child, you don't have a big enough forebrain. You don't have a developed enough forebrain. So you don't have logical reasoning. So at that point, if your needs are not met, you can't say, oh yeah, it's because my dad just fought in 2 wars and like he has to cut off his emotions. So of course he can't be emotionally available for me. You know, he can't even be emotionally available for himself. No, you can't do that. Instead, you just see it as, I just want love and daddy is not hugging me. There must be something wrong with me. That's the problem. Children internalize and then absorb this and make them about them. So in that little moment of their needs not being met, what also happens? So we talked about needs, we talked about trauma, we talked about redefining, and I want you to draw another line there, which is self-worth, and draw a big circle around this, because here's the biggest motherfucking thing. If you continuously put yourself in a situation where your needs are not going to be met, you are unconsciously, continuously reducing your self-worth, your self-value. You are unconsciously. I see a lot of you taking this with pain, and I'm sorry that you are absorbing this and feeling it this way, but my intention is for you to feel the intensity of this so that you want so bad to make a fucking change. If you are unconsciously putting yourself in positions, in relationships, in life situations, in jobs where your needs are not being met, you're unconsciously continuously invalidating your own self, bringing down your own self-worth, bringing down your own value. So if you want to become more intelligent about this in your relationships, if you want to pull yourself out of a wounded pattern faster than you may think, or faster than you may recognize, then the first thing you need to do is recognize, are my needs being met or not? So that's how we identify the first way for me, if I'm in a wounded relationship, is, are my needs even being met? Now, how do I define my needs? We'll talk about that on day 3 as well, a little more. You will have it as part of your homework today, though. I've also recognized that over years of conditioning, we sometimes forget what our true needs are. And then we focus only, again, as like saying, I just want someone in my relationship to always be there. I just want someone in my relationship. If I'm anxious, for example, I'll say, I want someone in my relationship to tell me every minute where he's at. No, that's a wounded need because it's a projection of a wounded response. So we're going to work on to other things, which now move into the next step. And this helps us get to a closer point of what healthy needs are, is when you're in a wounded cycle, your nervous system is continuously being triggered and has no safety. Would you guys agree to that? I want to see if you guys would agree to that. The fact that when you're in a situation which is a wounded cycle, your nervous system is just continuously feeling like it's in survival mode. It's continuously begging for love. It's continuously dancing on eggshells. It's continuously trying to prove itself. It's continuously afraid that the person's going to fucking abandon you. That fucking sucks. But you know what it does for your body, which is even worse, is that it continuously floods your body with stress chemicals. Stress chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline. Now, these things in small amounts, when you're in a survival place, which is earlier when we were like being chased by saber-toothed tigers, is essential because it helps us run away and to protect ourselves. But now everything is a fucking threat when we're feeling like our self-worth is low. Whether someone rejects us on Instagram, whether someone doesn't show up for a date, whether someone says you're not good enough, whether we see somebody else like having a joyful life themselves, we'll feel fucking rejected. So when we're continuously flooding ourselves with stress hormones, you know what they do? They actually start to shut down your vital organs. Research is showing that stress chemicals continuously running through your body can downregulate your genes. You know what this means? This means that you're making yourself more susceptible to cancers, disease, and so many other like ailments that keep coming up for us. They drop the immune system drastically, making you more susceptible to like even a fucking common cold because your body is in survival mode. It's continuously scared. So another way you know you're in a wounded cycle is if, you know, one time you're feeling really fucking high and the next time you're feeling really fucking low. If you're feeling threatened, if you're feeling afraid, if you're feeling like this person is continuously or unconsciously, it's not even about the other person. It's about if the relationship is making you feel unsafe. If you're an anxious person and you're attracting an avoidant continuously, that is an unhealthy pattern unless you do your healing, because for you, you need safety. And the other person doesn't know what real safety is themselves. So they're continuously running away and vice versa. So you need to focus on, is my nervous system feeling continuously triggered? Does it have a lack of safety in here? And what do I need to do to bring my awareness back to it? So that's another huge identifying point in helping yourself catch a cycle. I'm giving you guys realistic stuff, not like the stuff like, hey, Susie says you're in an unhealthy cycle. Sorry to all the Susies out there, by the way, I love you guys. But Susie says you're in an unhealthy cycle because that guy won't pick up your calls. No, that's fucking surface level. We're going deeper here into seeing, okay, well, how does that make you feel? What does that do for your nervous system? What does that make you want to do after that? To run back and like overcompensate, to grab at something, to overshare, to drink, to do any of those things, which are just coping mechanisms and survival mechanisms around a certain wound. And now the third one, which is a more obvious one, a little more logical one, but also is very heart-centered, in my opinion, is that our vision and our goals for our relationships just never seem to fucking actualize. Now, with this, I want you to be careful. Your mission is not to shame yourself for your past relationships and the fact that in the past, you put yourself in all these situations which didn't ultimately actualize into your goals. Allow yourself to feel compassion for the life that you've lived, for all that you've gone through. Give your little inner child self, the yesterday version of you, a kiss on the forehead and saying, thank you for doing all you did as best as you could. I'm going to take it from here with what I'm learning now. But from here onwards, you need to redefine what your visions and goals for yourself and your relationships are. You know, some of the most successful people I have met in my life in terms of relationships are also people who have very high standards for the way they deserve to be treated. And this doesn't mean that someone needs to keep fucking buying them diamond rings or someone needs to keep taking them out for fancy dinners. It simply means that they deserve a certain element of respect. They deserve a certain element of emotional safety. They deserve a certain element of the other person making the effort to show up as their best self. So I'm going to give you a really honest, be really vulnerable here with you guys for something and tell you that this past weekend, I had a huge conflict with my fiance, like huge conflict, to the extent where, like, you know, the usual conversation around is the wedding on or off, that kind of shit could possibly come up. And I recognized and looked at me here versus me many years ago. And me many years ago would have seen her fight response and would have fought her back. It would have attempted to defend myself by offending her. It would have attempted to get sarcastic, controlling, any of those particular things, because I would have seen it as me defending my own self. But my new response in that moment when she was dysregulated, naturally by something stupid I did, which I have to take accountability for, was to just calm down, was to ground my own nervous system. I literally reparented my inner child while things were being said to me, which we all know is natural, things are said to each other, so that I didn't feel like I had to go back at her. But when I reparented my inner child, when I was creating nerves, I was meditating while she was yelling at me, literally with my eyes closed and then my eyes open. I was grounding myself because that allowed me not to internalize her wounded actions and projections. And so she kept saying, like, why aren't you saying something back to me? Why aren't you saying something back to me? I didn't run away. I didn't hide. I didn't say, like, fuck you. I just sat there quietly and I tried to ground myself and pull my shoulders back. I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this with you, but she doesn't have a choice. At this point, But I grounded myself to a point where when she realized that her fight response was not bringing out a fight response in me, she realized, okay, this is not fucking working. She started to calm down and she started to fall asleep. Poor girl had cried herself like so, she was so tired, she fell asleep. But at that point, I started to feel that we've worked through the conflict section, we've worked through the antagonizing section where we're trying, our egos are trying to battle each other. Now's the time to hold space. So after that, we came back to have healthier conversation. I said, what is it that made you feel so scared? And at that point, I was able to get a better answer and response than if I just tried to fight with her when she was feeling afraid. But my point of saying this to you is that in the growth that I've had and assigning myself what I want for a better and better relationship for myself, I did two things. I held myself accountable to the standard of behavior that I have. So after we finished, I think I also spoke to her and I said, I want to make sure sorry is not as important for me as the fact that we want to grow from this so that we don't repeat something like this again. To which I got a beautiful commitment for her, which means I'm keeping the standards of my relationship for myself. But also I held a standard for myself that I would not be sucked into the same old pattern of getting triggered, fighting, getting a breakup, making it dramatized, telling other people. People ask me, like friends are like, do you want to talk about it? I was like, no, actually, I feel like we've really worked it out and I feel so grounded and calm. Because holding myself to that standard in my relationships meant I had to practice my nervous system regulation and my inner work every day. And that's what allowed me to get to that point. I'm saying this to you to say that healing, going through conflict, going through trauma is natural for all of us. I've been doing this work for so many years and I still need it every day. Same as you. My practice of inner work starts in the morning before anything else with my meditation, my breath work. And before I go to bed at night and put my head to the pillow, I will do another meditation for myself. Not because I want to be Jesus or like sit on a mountain or be Allah or Buddha or anything, but because I know I need it in order to be the best version of me, to enjoy the life I have. So in you creating those higher standards, you give yourself a better chance for your visions and goals in your relationships to actualize and to happen.